Hello everybody, welcome to another Valheim video. In the previous video, I showed you some different seeds so that you can explore, because we can't use the traditional seed hunting tools for this mod yet. But in this video, we're going to go into one specific world, and we're going to look at specific rivers on that world. First, I'll share a bit about why I picked this seed compared to others. And it's because it has immediate access to multiple biomes via multiple rivers that are situated very close to the center spawn where the player starts. And I think that this is better because if you're using Riverheim, you probably want to have a more river-themed experience in general. The next feature I was looking for is rivers that lead into a swamp. All right, and here we can see that this river is, this is ideal. It goes through all this Black Forest and then down into a swamp system that's big enough that you can probably source iron from there, right? And I'm not saying this is the best spot on the whole map, but realistically, players play through proximity and convenience. So I think that this map would probably be a more accommodating experience for people who are actually trying to play on one of these maps. Ideally, you find a map that has rivers placed in a way where they become very useful for your progression and transportation of metal, etc., etc. That's when this mod is really going to shine. But without further ado, let's get into actually going down some of these rivers. We'll start with this river system here. As you can see, the center of the world is right there, and to the south, there's this parallel river system, so to speak, that goes down and kind of leads into this swamp area over here. So we're going down the beginning river, and people have been asking about the coastlines of the rivers, because in Valheim in general, people feel that the coasts can be a little bit too steep. Like, this kind of thing happens a lot in the base game, right? So what we're going to find out pretty much is what the rivers look like by just kind of traveling down them this way. And I'll try and focus more like down to what the players will see, because I've noticed that when people seed hunt, they often go like really high up in the sky, but that's not really that useful for people because in practice, the player never sees that perspective. They see things from like down here. So if you're not careful, you're gonna like get lost in La La Land, and then players will have a different experience when they actually come to your server, right? So it's kind of good that you pay attention to this. And the first thing I'm noticing is there's a lot more windingness, right? So I've seen this kind of river before in normal Valheim. It doesn't look that different, but it does look bigger. It looks thicker. You can see there's still rock obstacles that one would need to clear in some way. And here's areas that people have been asking about, the big cliff areas. I don't know if this is the kind of thing you're curious about, but here's some of what we're dealing with. This looks quite reasonable to me. I mean, a player could go up to that. There's a little beachfront. That's not too steep. But then, of course, there's going to be areas that are much steeper, right? So it's really up to perspective. So far, to me, this looks relatively saleable. A person might have to, like, mine a couple of the rocks that are in the way to make it usable for, like, a long ship or something, but I'd say this is pretty solid. For me, personally, it doesn't look that different than normal Valheim, personally. The difference is more that you don't normally find rivers this long. So I'm not saying there aren't differences. It's just that, like, I'm pretty sure an average player isn't going to immediately be like, that's not a normal river. Valheim rivers don't look like that. I don't think they're going to notice. It's more the presence of the rivers is more obvious because there's just so many more of them. And not only that, but they just kind of keep going. I don't know if you've noticed, but in normal Valheim, the rivers tend to not be that long. Because here we can see that, like, the reason the rivers are bigger on Riverheim is because the continent's bigger. On one hand, the focus, right, is on the river, But realistically, it's not just making the rivers longer. It's making the rivers longer by making the continents bigger, because if you don't make the continents bigger, then who cares about a river in the ocean, right? And here we go. We have met the end, and it terminates into this swamp here with a lovely, lovely, well-placed well there. Look at that. And so here we are. We're almost at the end of this river, and look at this spot. I mean, it's a meadow with a little river right next to a bunch of swamp. And I don't know about all of you, but if you notice, as soon as you go into the swamp, it immediately gets dark because the swamp is covered in eternal darkness and the sun never shines and it's always raining and you'll never see the light of day. It's honestly kind of miserable in the long run. Ultimately, the swamp is quite a dark and dreary place, which can have its appeal, but for the most part, it's not so nice. So it's really nice to be able to be near the swamp and just look over into it. So this kind of thing is awesome. A lovely little meadow spot at the end of the river. That was one of the starting rivers. Now let's take a look at a river that has more black forest, a little bit more of a dangerous biome. We'll be exploring this river system here that is to the west of the spawn. Something I noticed about it that I think is quite interesting is it seems to have a lot of swamp meadows border, so I want to see what that area is like. And here we are. We're at the entrance to this river system, so to speak. Something important to remember about water in Valheim is it's all the same level. So in real life, rivers come down from mountains, whereas in Valheim, it's the opposite. Rivers are not near mountains for the most part. So they can cut through them sometimes, but the water level is always completely flat. It just has some waves that go up and down, but the water level is actually at Y30 everywhere in the whole world. So technically nothing's a river, right? That being said, I've noticed that there are some sort of patterns. Some of the biggest river systems do follow some similarities with in real life. For example, you find these huge kind of lake-like water structures near the ocean. In this case, we're looking at this one right here. And these often have multiple rivers stemming out of them going in different directions. And this is another part of the Riverheim experience that I would say is different than vanilla. Because in Riverheim, you actually have a lot of options. Like you'll have a river going left or right, and you have to decide which way to go. Whereas in normal vanilla Valheim, the rivers just end. They don't really intersect other rivers that often. Whereas with Riverheim, that's a totally normal part of the experience. And you also get a lot of these kind of lakes, as you can see here. Now I'm in like a swamp lake. So we went from this lake here over here, and now we're in this kind of swamp area. And this is the area I wanted to check out because it looks like it has a lot of swamp, but that is right next to meadows. And yes, as you can see, it is right next to some meadows here. So this is a very interesting spot to sail around in. You got a lot of big river access that doesn't have that many rocks. I would say this is a lovely river. I find this one to be more interesting than the previous one. There's a lot of biome diversity, and these swamps are thicker than expected. Very cool. Very, very cool. I hope this is giving you a better sense of what some of the terrain looks like. I do apologize because I don't actually have the best of computers, so I can't just like fly around super fast and show everything in high quality. But this is what the riverbanks look like. And as I've mentioned, a lot of the time it looks like normal Valheim. You won't immediately feel like you're in a different world. The changes are more in the length of the rivers, the quantity of rivers, the depth of the land masses. They're just so much deeper because they have to be in order to accommodate the rivers, right? So it doesn't really start feeling different until you travel down the river. And it's quite interesting seeing where they terminate. And the idea is this is like the mouth of the river, the source of it, right? And it's supposedly going that way. But remember that the whole way water is handled in Valheim complicates the existence of rivers because it's all just this Y30 height value line across the entire world. So like you can't really make the river go up the hill because it's not actually like a particle or something. It's literally just a value. And like you could dig down here and get to the water, right? That's because there's a sea level, right? That's why that happened. Moving on from that kind of stuff, we're going to look at a more dangerous biome further. Let's go into one of these continents over here. And I'm going to check out this almost fully plains river. It ends in a little bit of Black Forest there. So personally, I would build a base like here in this Black Forest area and then raid goblin camps and do all that kind of thing. That's what I would do. All right, here we are at the point where the river meets the ocean, so to speak. And in all honesty, for me, plains rivers are my favorite. And that's just because personally, they have way less rocks than the other rivers do. And that can be quite frustrating. So I found that the plains are nice. They're nicer to sail in general. But this is a nice place. I'm kind of tripping out about that mountain though. Look at that thing. This looks like it's so steep over there. 1 second. We got to check that out. Yeah, now it looks more natural. I will say that the mountains have a bit more of a sculpted look than what I'm used to. And I would say that it looks more like normal mountains. They have that kind of eroded look, right? So that's pretty cool. Mountains are huge. Whew. And as we continue down this path, I'll point out that as normal, the Riverheim experience seems to be about more rivers, deeper continents, twists and turns in rivers, and river turning points. Or forks in the road, forks in the river, so to speak. You can see that there's a lot of situations where you actually have to turn right or left, right? Again, that's not that normal. And here we have some interesting parallel river action, right? There's probably situations where you might actually have a reason to dig a canal through an area to connect two rivers. That's a thing that can be fun if it's a small amount of space, but it can also turn into a completely overwhelming task. So here we are, the river just terminates here and ends kind of in a swampy kind of area. So far, I haven't seen that many sheer cliffs as I do in normal Valheim. But to be honest, the way RNG works, you have to go through a lot of iterations to really get a proper feel for it. So, who knows, maybe someone will find something out. Prove me wrong. There we go, there's the end of the other river. Now, to finish off, I'll look for a Mistlands river. I will say that Mistlands rivers are something that you should probably look for in a particular seed to make sure it's there, if that's something you're looking for. Because they can be pretty rare. I'll show you this one here that will start at the plains and then we'll go out to the ocean through the Mistlands. This is a small Mistlands river, but I'll show you what it looks like so you can get a feel for the terrain. This one is to the south of the spawn. We'll start up here in the plains. Here we are at... As you can see, this one is much more like a ravine. And it essentially has to be to get this far into the deeper part of the continents. As I mentioned earlier, the water level is always the same, so it can't actually flow uphill. So now let's get through this mist and get a sense for what's going on once we're in the Mistlands portion of the river. You can see that this is still boat accessible, but you definitely would have to be slow to make sure that you don't get caught up on the sides here or crash into any of these rocks, especially with all of this mist that's here. I'm gonna go a little bit higher up just so I can avoid the mist more easily. We can follow this river here, and you see that it looks like I would wager that the steeper riverbanks, more like a ravine, that tends to happen when it's closer or further inland. Whereas this isn't as steep. This is more manageable from my perspective. I'd say this is alright, although it's definitely not the kind of river that you could travel down quickly in a boat without problem. As we keep going, you see we can avoid things. We have to kind of crash into those rocks a little bit. But for the most part, there's enough space to get a boat through. Let's keep on going here. And now we're reaching the outside part of it. I would say that in general, Mistlands rivers are very challenging to navigate, especially with the mist the way they are. and that boats can go fast and you need more visibility, but the demister doesn't really remove much of the mist considering you're in a boat going faster. So I would say that the experience of going down a river without doing something to the mist is probably not that great in general, so maybe it doesn't even matter that there aren't that many. But that's just my take personally on it. You can see that the Mistlands just, it kind of has this more kind of dotted edge with a lot more surface area, so to speak. A lot more little islands and tiny little outlets. Whereas the river territories don't really have that. They have a more defined edge, right? Like the plains, the Black Forest, and the meadows, etc. Even in the swamps, the rivers look different, right? Because they kind of blend in and out, and just because it looks like a river on the map, it doesn't mean it's going to be in-game. And there you have it. I figure that this is a great seed for those of you who want to try out a new playthrough, and you're going to do the first couple biomes. I figure this is a great seed for those of you who want to have a more river-centric experience using this mod for the beginning of your Valheim experience. But don't expect just changing the terrain to change the fact that, for the most part, Valheim is a linear, progressing, short-term game. If you do want to use this seed, which again is great for the earlier part of the game, for the Mistlands and later on, I don't know. But up until Plains, oh, this is a great seed with lots of river access. It's called Riverheim. That's Riverheim. Just like the name of the mod. Now, if you want to learn more about managing your own server, or you want to add more life to the long-term viability of the Valheim experience by adjusting the mechanics for everybody who plays on the server, well, check out all of the content that we've been making about Expand World, Prefabs. You can also join the Path of Magic playtesting server, which is a server that I run that helps playtest all of these different scripts and ideas. It's an altered Valheim experience with hundreds of different mechanics compared to the game that you're used to. Most of them along the theme of making the Valheim experience last longer than it normally does. If you want to learn more about extending the lifetime of your Valheim experience or your friend's Valheim experience, or even running your own Valheim server, then check out my other content. I've got lots of content about this new way of modding Valheim that's completely vanilla friendly. Yeah, that's right. You use mods to make the scripts, but once you have the script on the server, any vanilla client will deal with it. It's a whole new world of modding, and I'm really excited to help people learn more about it because I get really inspired seeing all the things that people do. So if you want to learn more about that, then join the Valheim World Editing Discord. It's hosted by Yair, who's the creator of Expand World Prefabs, but I'm always happy to bring some traffic there because they have taught me so much about this wonderful experience, and I really hope that you try it out yourself. Don't get confused. I advertise getting a server. That's just because I do that and it helps me earn some money. But you don't have to get your own server. You can try and practice with Expand World Prefabs in single player without paying any money for anything. So it's completely approachable. The easiest way to think about it is this. Expand World Prefabs allows players to mod Valheim without knowing anything about coding. Expand World Prefabs instead relies on your knowledge of Valheim. So what ends up happening is at first the person plays Valheim, but then they get used to it, maybe they've beaten it, whatever, and then they evolve and they start developing things. They start making servers, they start making an experience for other people, and it just compiles and compiles and grows. And that's where Valheim shines in a way that no game, for me personally, has ever shown before. Valheim with EWP is so inherently satisfying to develop that I don't even care about other games. I play other games for 10 or 20 hours as breaks in between my love of Valheim EWP. And, oh, it's amazing. I really hope that you enjoy it as much as I have. And alternatively, if you want to support me, you could just play on the server, support me on Patreon, or just like this video and share it with others. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!